Up here in Canada, all we want for Christmas is a new prime minister, and it looks like there's a big petition that's getting its rounds. Marty, up north, welcome back. We're doing another weekly roundup.
I'm getting ready for Christmas. I'm getting ready for my Santa Claus costume. I'm gonna. The kids love it. You know, I don't need a fake beard, but it's not white enough. But maybe I'll dye it white.
That'll come one day. My dad, like it seemed like overnight it just all turned white. I don't know. Maybe he was dyeing it. I don't know. But we've got a petition going in Canada. This is something that a lot of people have been bringing to my attention. I did a video about it earlier this week, and it's getting a lot of attention. A lot of names on it now. 113,000 signatures. I don't know what is the actual number that it has to get to actually be considered in the House of Parliament. By the way, this is a vote of confidence.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is a real petition. Well, I mean, all petitions are real, right? Some people can put together a petition on their own, but these ones are the government of Canada. The Parliament has its own website where an MP can sponsor a petition somehow. I don't know what the number is. I don't think there's an exact number. There's probably a traditional number. You know, the number must be high because very few of these petitions make it to the floor of the House of Commons and get voted on. So I'm going to say the number is in the 250,000 range. I don't quote me exactly, but I think this one's approaching in terms of numbers, one of the highest petitions ever. You know, I think previously there were some in the 160, 170,000 range. I'd like to see this one get to 250.
Yeah,
for sure.
I would love to. I'd love to see that because a lot of Canadians are just sick and tired of Trudeau. And normally you have this mechanism in Canada, right? If you have a minority government voted in, they hardly ever make it to the next election. This is just the way the parliamentary system works. When you have a minority government, it's the other parties that basically, well, they rule the roost, and it actually there's no mandate. Essentially, they're not given a mandate to rule.
Right. Well, a minority government means that it doesn't have the necessary 51% of the vote, so it's always at risk of being defeated, and on motions, on bills, on things like that. And historically, in our country, we've had dozens of minority governments, but they typically last about 2.5 years. So this one's been 2.5 years. In fact, I'd say this one's been 4 years if you consider the fact that Trudeau's last government was also a minority government, right? So 2019 to 2021 was minority, and now he's being propped up by Jagmeet, formally. I mean, Jagmeet and him, I say Jagmeet, the NDP and the Liberals have a formal alliance where Jagmeet said he would not defeat Trudeau, and Canadians are fed up of that. Yes, to the original question.
Well, and it's worse than that because it's not a formal agreement. A formal agreement would be a coalition. There's actually rules around a coalition. What they've done is the supply and confidence agreement, an agreement that they're going to vote together. It's the non-alliance alliance.
Good Orwellian speak there. Bring up. I asked you to cue it up. You have. Can you bring up the top of my post? There you go. So I mean, this is we've shown this slide before. This is not the seat projection. It's just a popular vote in Canada. Blue and since the end of summer. Trudeau's popularity has been tanking, and the gains, what he's lost, has been gained by the Conservatives. This is all a result of high inflation, high mortgage rates. Like all the bad policies are coming to roost, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel for the Liberals. There's not going to be any relief in terms of some good news because it's just going to keep getting uglier for Canadians. And Canadians want to change. And when I look at that, one of the things I noticed, I put little arrows on there. You got the Liberals going down, and you got the orange of the NDP going up. I mean, I'm forecasting that officially. Jagmeet Singh could find himself as the true opposition.
Wow.
So why wouldn't he defeat the government? So the petition is timely because Canadians are fed up. And if Jagmeet had balls, he would actually defeat Trudeau in some non-confidence vote. there was one, and it passed again. The follow up of the last week's fiscal update resulted in a confidence vote that got defeated. So, yeah, it's Canadians are fed up now. One of the things I also want to talk about this week is, we know that the Liberals are sensing this, right? We know the Liberals are sensing that they're declining in the polls, and what are they doing? Rather than turn to Canadians and offer some real concrete solutions, all they know how to do is turn against Pierre Poilievre, right? They're attacking Pierre. We saw this weird attack of they attacked Pierre on the Niagara incident. Yesterday was another weird day. Some Liberal MP posted like what he thought was a gotcha moment. Like he went to a website and listed Pierre's expenses for the year. Well, he didn't. What he listed was like the Conservative Party's expenses for the year, but he made it sound like Pierre had spent $3 million in personal expenses as an MP, which was
that's
like
rich from a Liberal. Like really, after what we've seen, the Beef Wellington, all this stuff coming from the Liberal Party.
Yeah, and they're in a spiral, so they're trying all these things, and it's not working for them. I mean, I heard. Well, no, I didn't.
The MAGA one's got me. The MAGA one was the one that really choked me up and made me laugh, because they've been preaching that Pierre is bringing American-style politics to Canada. Yep. But who talks about MAGA in Canada? Nobody. Nobody's talking about MAGA. The acronym is Make America Great Again, for one. Like it's not like even a Canadian version of it. They're directly.
It's not even. You're right. It's not even a Canadian cliche. It would be. Well, it's like when people use the. They'll use the racist card, and then if they don't get traction, they'll go over the top and say, "Oh, we saw a Confederate flag," or they're skinheads. There's no skinheads in Canada. There's no Confederate flags in Canada. There's no Nazi flags in Canada. Like it's just desperate. I mean, one of the things we learned this week, Trudeau hired a new PR guy. Some Gen Z guy to reshape his image. Now I reached out to the guy on Twitter, because right now the guy's name is Max Valiquette, and his Twitter account is locked down. Great PR guy for like Trudeau's press secretary. Typical of a lot of Liberals, actually. They're shutting down their accounts, and anyways, I reached out to him. I don't think he'll accept me as a follower, but I look forward to seeing what he comes up with for Trudeau's transformation.
Well, I think he's already hard at work. I think we should take a look at his first installment of talking points. And this is a great one. This is a great one from the House of Parliament floor. Just today, Justin Trudeau making statements about how Christmas won't be white if we don't pay our carbon taxes. Here we go.
Climate denialism of the Conservative Party of Canada is putting future white Christmases at risk, and that's why on this side of the House we stand for Christmas.
That's the talking point. We stand for Christmas. Oh man,
I stand for Christmas. Yeah. No, it's too hot to wear this. But
I pointed out that Trudeau, he hasn't stood for any Christian holidays ever. I mean, his main point when it comes to Christianity in Canada is to diminish and demean Christians at every front as much as he possibly can. So he's not religiously standing for Christmas. He's standing for Christmas in what the whiteness of it. If it's if it snows, and really, does he think that if we don't pay our carbon taxes, that Christmases will no longer be white in our Arctic country?
I don't think he thinks anything, right? We've said the way I describe Trudeau often is he stands for everything, and then in standing for everything, he ends up standing for nothing, and so like and you see him in a debate like that, he'll spin himself, because a week ago he'd be like, Christmas is terrible. The Human Rights Commission said Christmas is bad, and now he's easy to goad along, and now he'll be like defending Christmas, and you can get him to flip on anything, right? And that's basically what he was doing there, defending Christmas, and trying to spin somehow that the Conservatives were demolishing Christmas. Oh God, I mean, the follow-up question in the House of Commons, the Bloc Québécois jumped in on board, and then the leader of the Bloc Québécois, oh, that was funny too. Well, funny. The leader of the Bloc Québécois asked, is Justin Trudeau saying that Christmas is racist? Something like that. And then the Speaker of the House, and then the House was chaos and there was noise. So the Speaker of the House pressed the button and quieted everything. And then the Speaker came back on, and he turned to the leader of the Bloc and says, "I don't think your question's relevant right now. I don't see what it has to do with anything." Holy shit, that guy was ready, because he instantly turned it onto the Speaker. He's like, Your Honor, or whatever he calls him. The Canadian Human Rights Commission is a department of the Canadian government, and it falls under the responsibility of Pierre Trudeau. So I have the right to know if Justin Trudeau believes that Christmas is racist. And so it's like, whoa, and the Speaker just got shut down hard, and Trudeau had to answer the question.
On what grounds did they declare Christmas to be racist?
I didn't even look into that story, to be honest.
It's absurd, right?
It's so absurd. It's a giant disappointment. But actually, it leads to a bunch of things. I mean, today Trudeau turned your carbon tax comment, right? Like somehow or other, the Conservatives are bad boys for not supporting a carbon tax, which is going to eliminate. Whatever. We won't have any more white Christmases.
We won't have snow in Canada in the winter anymore.
And on a day where, I don't know, I think 350 Canadian delegates are flying to Abu Dhabi, because starting tomorrow is COP28. The World Climate Change Conference is in Abu Dhabi. No, not in Abu Dhabi. Sorry, it's in Dubai. I'm sure. A nation that exists almost solely because of its natural gas and oil. Like, the hypocrisy knows no end. They're all flying over there in their private jets, and they're going to go have a chat.
One of my favorite parts about that was what you pointed out on Twitter, was that on the COP28 United Arab Emirates, I believe, that UAE, that's where it's going to be. They have a feel good switch on there. You can switch it to the low carbon version, and if you switch that, it reloads the website without images. And the part that got me the best, I love this, is because it is a feel-good thing. It loads the website without the images after you've already loaded the website with the images. So it reloads the website and actually uses more energy. That's what it does. It's hilarious.
I actually created a button like that, and I put a button on top of my Twitter feed. There, feel good.
Feel good.
I feel good. I feel great. Oh God. Well, no, and I mean, again, the insanity. Like, they're on the one hand, they're calling for a freeze or more carbon tax, but on the other hand, they give a break to the Maritimes, and then they're calling for whatever, a freeze on plastic straws, but on the other hand, they come and celebrate the startup. We'll talk about that one, I'm sure, because you might not even know that one. It never ends with these guys. It never ends.
Well, it's called hypocrisy. That's what it is.
It's hypocrisy. Absolutely.
And that's why. So when Stephen Guilbeault, he gets up on the House of Parliament, and he says that, Stephen Harper called climate change a socialist plot. Well, what else would you call it when this is how it's done? I mean, if everything that they do for the name of climate change brings about more and more socialism, it's about reducing people's ability to own property, usurping people's property, limiting businesses from being able to operate, putting more parts of the economy into the hands of the state. I mean, what else would you call that other than socialism? And meanwhile, he goes up and says he's a proud socialist, and yet somehow absurd to think.
Yeah, and you're studied, you're well read, you know the playbook. We've talked about this. It's a socialist playbook. What's going on right now? I mean, there's, it's not a conspiracy. You know, the naive Marty is really come on board. Trudeau and those guys are being driven by somebody at a greater agenda. It's the guy. He's going to go meet. Actually, he can't go to COP28, but they're dictating. Somebody else is dictating to us the outcome. There's no other explanation for what Trudeau's doing. There's no other explanation.
Well, I mean, they have an agenda. It's Agenda 30, and all these other countries are following this agenda. And it's been detrimental to the citizenry of all the countries that are following this agenda. It's not good. It's not good. And this is why people are fighting against it. This is why I have hope for places like the Netherlands.
Like Alberta.
Well,
the Netherlands.
Netherlands, Argentina. We've seen things.
Have you heard what happened in the Netherlands? I mean, I've heard that the what they call it is called the Freedom Party. So he won. He got 30 seats out of 150. Mm-hmm. So it's a minority. I mean, you know, a lot of places in Europe are perpetually in minorities because there's so many parties. I think there was 20 parties in the election in the Netherlands, and 19 parties got 1 seat or more. So he got 30. But has he formed a coalition? What's he done? Do you know?
So from what I hear, there's a bunch of the losers that do have seats. They're all saying that this is a big risk to democracy. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to form a giant coalition against him and usurp the powers of democracy, circumvent the will of the people, and try to take him out of the position of prime minister. It hasn't been formed yet. We don't know. It's still up in the air.
Yeah, if they have a constitutional monarchy, which I think they do, which is similar to ours, no matter what, whoever wins the most seat is given the first chance to form a government. So even if the other group gets together and says, you know, all the losers were bigger than him, it shouldn't matter. He should still have but yeah, you know, that's an example of, again, of the attacks, right? We heard it in the House of Commons, you know, the Liberals are saying that Poilievre's bringing MAGA style politics, and then they reference Europe and places like that. And then they'll use ugly terms. They're trying to vilify the word populist, right? And I hate that. I mean,
you mean democracy?
You know, and populist and popular aren't exactly the same, but you know, to me, populist simply means the opposite of elitists. And so when they use the term like populist, and we got to be careful of the populist,
it's looking down on your average person. That's what it is.
Absolutely. And so either you believe in democracy or you don't. And if the will of the people elects a party that's in Holland that's pro freedom and wants to reverse something, that's their choice.
So
right?
a big problem in Holland was migration. It was a giant influx of migrants coming into Holland, and it was creating violence and other problems. Namely, nobody had a place to live. People didn't have anywhere to go, and they were running out of places, and homes were becoming more expensive.
But they're running out of land. So, I mean, you know, we're running out of houses. They're running out of land.
Absolutely. So, but that brings me to what you know, I did a video this week, and it was one of these ones where I was like, we need to talk about this. It's the elephant in the room. Why is it that we're not discussing this? And I put out a tweet and I said, you know, let's open this door, right? Housing is a huge issue in Canada. Pierre Poilievre has made it a staple talking point, and the Liberals are reluctantly pretending to address it. But my question today is, why are no major political parties addressing the immigration issue that is driving the cost of housing up? And it really is a giant issue. And this is the thing. A lot of politicians want to say that it isn't. Here's, what's his name? Dominic LeBlanc being asked specifically this question.
There has been some suggestion that we're taking in too many immigrants, and that's putting pressure on the housing sector, especially at the lower ranks, right? The affordable housing part of the equation is really stretched. Is there any consideration around the cabinet table to restricting the number of immigrants that we accept each year?
Not that I'm aware of. I've had a conversation with Mark Miller about this yesterday. I don't think that's the best way. That's not the best way to deal with what is a real challenge. Premier Houston of Nova Scotia talks to me about trying to bring in entire construction crews from other countries to build the houses and then move into them. So,
so that's ridiculous because last summer we laid off 70,000 construction workers because of non-starters. It was a lot of construction crews were going down because the prices are fluctuating. Nobody knows if they're going to get a return on investment on these new buildings.
It's an elephant in the room, but I think it not for the reasons that maybe some people would think. You know, the immediate reaction might be, people are afraid to talk about immigration because you might appear as being either anti-immigration or racist or something like that. And that's not the case, right? I mean, that doesn't prove out in Canada. 40% of people currently living in Canada weren't even born here. Let's put that into context. So
in my family, I'm the first generation of people to be born here. Both my parents are immigrants. My wife's an immigrant. I mean,
that's not why it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room because behind the scenes, quietly, I think, this is just my opinion, but behind the scenes, things are bad. And if you listen to one of the narratives that's really popular among the liberals is that, yeah, we're borrowing money and things look bad, but hey, trust us because our GDP is growing, our gross domestic production is growing, and our GDP, our debt to GDP ratio is good and everything, blah, blah, blah. The underlying assumption for that growing GDP is a growing population. So we have to let in people because it's the only way we can justify the absolute shit show that we're in. So if we really started talking about immigration and the problems that it's creating problems. The liberals are using it as a solution. It's creating problems. And so, and I'd be nervous to talk about it because if I start talking, if I'm in the House of Commons and I start talking about immigration, I know what's going to happen. They're going to turn it on me and immediately attack me for being racist or whatever, anti-immigration, anti-certain group. So yeah,
they try to paint you as a Donald Trump, right? That's the whole thing. And we don't have the same immigration problem that the Americans have at all. No, we have a lot of people that want to come to Canada, and they're coming to Canada, and it's not like an influx on the border of people just walking in. I know we have Roxham Road, but that's not typically the amount that we have.
It's out of control right now. I mean, we let in 2022, we let in 1 million immigrants, a million people. And our historical highs was like 250, 300,000 a year. So 1 million is completely unprecedented. And never mind the fact that I don't think there's housing for them. I really don't. In the best year ever, Canada builds like 200,000 housing units in a year. So even if a housing unit holds 3 or 4 people, that's 800,000. So it doesn't match the growth through immigration. But between you and me, look at I don't think the immigrants, we're letting them in so fast, so quickly. They're themselves not having a chance to integrate properly. And so we're setting them up for failure. I agree. I'd love nothing more than to have good immigrants coming into the country like 10 generations before us, but we got to give them a chance. And at this rate, we're not giving them any chance.
No, and the numbers, these are the official numbers of the goals that they are holding in place. Yeah. They want 500,000 new permanent residents next year. So that's permanent residents. That doesn't include the students
and the illegal immigrants or they're not illegal.
Refugees
no, they're not refugees. They call them irregular immigrants.
Irregular.
We changed it. Irregular.
Right. Yeah, we have all these terms.
Actually, that was another crazy story that broke today. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's Indian, but he's based out of Toronto. But anyways, he broke a cool story today that. He showed the statistics for the number of students who are applying for full-time refugee status. And so it's apparent that there's a scam going on. People around the world have figured out that you apply to these schools in Canada, call them the easier, second-rate, third-rate schools. You apply there, you get in quickly. And once you're in and you got your foot on the ground, then you apply for permanent resident status. So, we're a country that loves to be abused. And then we're so nice and so naive that, I think you did it too, right? You did a video on how some of these groups help each other figuring out how to cheat the
food banks.
I don't want to go down the food banks. Yeah.
It was a big thing.
Again, see, I can tell right now, you and I are going to get called anti-immigrant tomorrow, and you said it. You're first generation, man. You're not anti-immigrant.
I'm pro-immigrant.
Yeah,
but I want to see some realistic numbers. I brought this up at work, so I brought this up to one of my colleagues. I said, you're marginally into politics. You follow it. You follow the news. You're kind of up to date, but not like I am. And he said, yeah. I said, what do you think the kind of numbers of immigrants we're bringing into our country every year? Like, I'm talking permanent residents, new Canadians. How many are we bringing in? And he was like, I don't know. I said, what if I told you 500,000 was the number per year? He was like, no, like 50,000, right?
Yeah.
No, 500,000.
No,
he said, I think that's a little excessive. You know, the average Canadian thinks that that's a little excessive. We're a country of 40 million people. This is something that Pierre Poilievre, I showed in one of my videos, months and months, almost a year ago, he was talking about, and he can't talk about anymore, but he brought up their pet project of changing the demographics, or not changing the demographics, but just bringing in a population above 100 million within a decade in Canada.
I mean, it's doable, right? I mean, I'm always like, I find it fascinating when I go to the US and then I think about the fact that there's 300 million people in a geography smaller than ours. So could we put 100 million people? Yeah, but it would take a long time. I don't want to do that.
Is it realistically smaller than ours, though? I mean, for the habitable areas that we inhabit, I mean,
granted.
Yeah, we don't have very much space at all. America, the whole thing is inhabitable.
Well, 50% of Canadians live below a little red line that's like in southern Ontario. Like, you take that teeny wee little tip of southern Ontario and extend it to, what's the other statistics? I think like 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the U.S. border.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
I always liken it we're a bunch of people, we're a bunch of kids at the candy store just pressing our face against the window going, I wonder what it's like to be in there.
Which makes the announcement last week, some of the announcements of the Liberals like desperately trying to increase housing when they said, oh, we're gonna free up Crown land. I'm like, where? In Tuktoyaktuk? Like, yeah, no, people don't want to go there. I mean, those million actually.
Well, this is how they speak out of both sides of their mouth, right? Like they're talking about freeing up land, but over here in British Columbia, they just made an announcement how they're sealing up land. They're making it unavailable. They're making land that was previously available unavailable for environmental purposes, and they're spending a lot of our taxpayer dollars in doing so. So, like, what are they actually after? Do they have a plan? We don't know. I mean, at this point,
they don't have a plan. I mean, I cannot give them the benefit of the doubt of having a plan. There's no plan. They're letting a lot of people in for the obvious reasons. They're easy voters in the future because they'll feel some sort of gratitude. They help the GDP number without knowing that they're doing it. And then Trudeau gets to fulfill one of the Agenda 2030 items of providing space for the rest of the world to live in and so forth. Yeah, it's all like that. It's all that.
Well, I would argue that it doesn't actually help the GDP numbers. This is a clip that Viva Fry actually posted on Twitter, and this was during one of these committees. This is not the House. This is not the House of Parliament where you can like bring in political arguments. No, this is
still one step below. This is one step above the House of Commons, but it's still a gong show. I think I know this clip. She ain't going to answer the question. She's going to get asked, but
Well, I'll just play it.
And I think it's important to have intellectual honesty in this conversation. I'm asking you about GDP per capita. Canada's population has swelled in recent years, which has masked our GDP per capita, which is per individual. Each Canadian is getting poorer. They're getting poorer, Minister. This is an issue. So I'm asking you again, just a number. What was the GDP per capita in the first quarter, the second quarter, or the third quarter?
Mr. Lawrence, you and I actually have had very respectful exchanges, and I'm grateful for that. But I have to say, after your leader's performance last week, where he jumped to accusations of terrorism, alarming all Canadians, and after the vote,
I mean, there's no sense of watching any more of it. She doesn't answer the question.
I couldn't even stand across from her. I'd be boiling. Yeah, no, I get your point, Clyde. I get your point. Like, and.
So the purpose of the immigration
is two GDPs, right? There's the gross GDP. Yeah, there's the gross GDP, which is the one she wants to talk about. When she talks about Canada's debt to GDP ratio, she's talking about Canada's GDP, and she gets to increase it by saying we have immigrants. But you and I know if the immigrants are arriving and they're not integrating and not contributing,
well, they're not trained, they're not able to do the things.
Then they're not adding to the GDP, and they're diluting the rest of us. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All it's helping is their credit rating, so they can borrow more money. And this is really where we're at. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's putting them in a desperate spot too, because like there's all these immigrants that come over with this promise of a great thing, and how many of them are turning around and going, forget it, I'm going back home. I had a better deal back at home than I got here.
Clyde, I've heard of Ukrainians who came to Canada as refugees, went to Edmonton, which is probably one of the most Ukrainian cities in Canada, and now 6 months later they're like, fuck it, we're going back to Ukraine.
Going back to war.
They'd rather go back.
Yeah, go
back to war because there's nothing here for them. Culturally, it's dead, and there's nothing for them. Yeah. Speaking of Edmonton,
that clip. Okay, so I want to. Yeah, this is something else. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about Chrystia Freeland anymore. Except what in the heck is wrong with her? What is absolutely wrong with her? I haven't seen this clip. This is going to be my first time reacting to it.
I haven't seen it either. I've only heard of it. I haven't seen it.
This comes off of the heels. Let's just a little preface. This comes off of the heels of them losing a court case in a higher court in Canada, where they said, no, you cannot ban single-use plastics for arbitrary reasons. What are you thinking? What are you talking about? Meanwhile, over in Alberta, they're making...
Actually, he lost the case, but he said he's still going to appeal the case because Stephen Guilbeault is absolutely... he wants to ban plastics. Let's make that clear. So Stephen Guilbeault wants to. So then this happens.
And who is one of the defendants in that case? Well, let's get into this.
Your government is continuing this legal fight to keep some single-use plastic items designated as toxic. So Dow was one of the defendants, though, in this situation. So how do you explain your continuation of that fight while also standing here today contributing financially to these operations that's going to make more single-use plastics?
Thank you for the question.
Just to add a little more context, they're at a ribbon breaking of the announcement for giving Dow Chemical a ton of money so that they can produce more single-use plastics.
A ton of money. Dow Chemical is spending $10.5 billion building plastic processing facility in Edmonton, which we love.
Fantastic. I think it's great.
It's fantastic. It's great news. Way to go, Danielle. But yes.
Chrystia Freeland's over there cutting the ribbon as if she's done something good for this. Okay. Here's her answer.
I think we all recognize how important it is to have clean rivers, clean...
Talk about getting caught red-handed. Like she's wearing red gloves.
Clyde, I can't. I'm gonna laugh too hard. I'm already crying. Like this is so hypocritical. Like how does she go back to Ottawa and face Stephen Guilbeault? Guilbeault's gonna say, I want to keep pushing and I want to ban plastic straws. And then she's like, but I just did that's how desperate they are to try and improve their image. They'll do anything to improve their image. They'll shoot. Like Quebecers are going to see this tomorrow, and Quebecers are going to go, "You're out of your mind." Like Quebecers hate Alberta. Quebecers hate the subsidies. Quebecers think there's billions of dollars in subsidies. So now she's going to have to go back. This will be the first thing the Bloc Québécois is going to ask her tomorrow. Now,
what else she says?
How do you reconcile? Yeah,
lakes, clean oceans, clean forests. And I think we all want to reduce pollution, to keep all of that natural world as clean as possible. And I think that is a commitment shared by the Government of Canada and our business partners like Dow.
Yeah.
What? No way. No
Clyde,
way.
this clip is like, yeah, that's
you need the Benny Hill music to end that with.
It's insane, man. It's completely insane. Completely insane.
What?
Yeah. Way to go, Danielle. Actually, way to go, Danielle.
Oh, yeah. Big shout out to Danielle for doing a bang-up job on that and securing such a contract in
I'm happy again, Clyde, because when I heard about this at first, like, this is the second or third time in the last 3 months that Freeland makes a surprise appearance in Alberta, goes at some oil facility and tries to get some credit. And it upsets me. And I wondered why Danielle would invite her to these things.
To make her look Freeland like a complete hypocrite. That's amazing.
Bingo. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I'm happy. Yes. Thank you. Now I'm happy. Freeland came here and that's a win that's a win-win for Danielle. And oh my God. Yes.
I don't even know what else to say to that. It's unbelievable. No. And the amount that they're going after people. I mean, this stuff all started small. I remember a decade or so ago going into the grocery store and seeing the little passive aggressive boxes that say "if you care" products, right? Yeah. And it was just in a brown. Yeah. It's a there's no print on it, or it's not a. They didn't spend a lot of money on their packaging, but they charge you a whole lot more on the grounds of like you care about the environment. You can show off to everybody that you care. That's fine if it's done in the free market, but this stuff has all been forced on us by the government, and I can't stand for it. And when I see something like this, I don't even know how to take it.
No, well, I mean, yeah, it's like you were talking earlier about that no carbon button, or the airlines that offer you, you buy an airline ticket on Air Canada and they'll offer you to pay an extra $50 to offset your carbon footprint and blah, blah, blah. They love all this shit. I mean, yeah, that's wow, this is a good one. I don't know how Freeland's going to reconcile this one. That's going to be interesting because this is going to upset the Bloc. I guarantee you, it's going to upset the Bloc. And Guilbeault.
Guilbeault's already upset because Danielle Smith, on top of this good news, also invoked the Sovereignty Act in Alberta, saying, we're done with this overreach from the federal government. Guilbeault, he gets up and he says, well, all these other provinces are working with us, and we just want Alberta to work with us. It's like, well, no, you want Alberta to listen to you and follow your dictates. They don't. Alberta does not want to follow the federal government with this energy scheme. And
well, it's not that we don't just want to follow. I mean, I think Danielle's been pretty clear. Like she got her group of experts that said 2035 is unreasonable. So she offered something reasonable. She said make it 2050, and Guilbeault shutting it down. By the way, again, man, another fascinating week. Just this morning. There is an announcement in Germany. So Germany's transition to green. Like if we want to see how fiascos go, look at Germany's transition to green. They went too fast, too hard in it, shut down their coal plants. Then they came back to Canada. They're trying to buy natural gas from us, blah, 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 blah. Today, they passed a law in Germany, and the regulator is now authorized to more tightly manage the grid, because the grid is constantly on the edge of collapsing, the power grid, similar to what Danielle's warning about us. So the electric cars, the electric trains, all of that, it's stressing their old grid. And now they have no choice. They have to do these rolling blackouts or brownouts. And
it's like load shedding in South Africa. They're doing that
totally.
Wow.
Yeah. You ever lived in a country? I visited Nepal many, many years ago. I went to Everest Base Camp, and it was interesting because people had this schedule, and I'd want to go to a restaurant or something like that, and people go, "Oh well, we can't go at 6. We have to go at 10." I'm like, "What do you mean at 10?" It's like, well, there's no power between 6 and 10, and a country where. I mean, that's an exception. Nepal is like 187th poorest country in the world. But yeah, blackouts are not fun.
South Africa does this. And South Africa used to be a bustling country. The socialists took over, and it didn't take very long. And here we are, load shedding. That's the thing that they do.
Something to be said about British and Dutch colonizers, man. They knew how to run a country.
They knew how to do
things. Look at us.
They knew how to do
Yeah, they knew how to do things.
The whole West Coast is Dutch out here. There's a lot of
is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of Dutch people out here. They've done a bang up job. And I'm talking on the American side too, on the West Coast. So that's a thing. My Scottish
I'm going to see Danielle. Danielle, that was I'm going to see Danielle in January. Thanks to I'm going to go see her at the chat she's having with Tucker Carlson. So I scored a ticket for that.
Oh, you scored a ticket for that? Yeah. Wow, that's great. Ticket. I'm gonna miss out on that, but it's not in my neighborhood. Yeah. That is definitely gonna be something good.
Yeah, she's doing good. Yeah,
well, she is doing good, and the
happy.
reason why, the reason why I want to talk about it is because finally somebody's standing up to Trudeau, and we can see just how Trudeau's cabinet is going to react if anybody else stands up. And this is good because we need a trailblazer. We need a trailblazer like Danielle Smith to say, nope, nuh-uh, we're not going to do it. Then you'll see, Saskatchewan, Manitoba maybe follow.
We've gone through our, for the viewers, we have a little list up in front. I've gone through the list, but I want to bring up one more point. It's crazy, but so remember a couple of weeks ago when there was the carbon tax carve out for the Maritimes,
right?
So Scott Moe of Saskatchewan ordered Sask Power not to collect the carbon tax. So he had that ability. Yeah, he had that ability to do that because he has a Crown corporation. Well, Danielle, that's what they're doing in Alberta now. So today, Danielle and the Albertans announced that we were considering building a Crown corporation to distribute electricity. But so again, this is how beautiful, because one of the things Danielle Notley's been, not Danielle
Rachel,
Notley, Rachel Notley was always like harping that, under Kenny and whatnot, he deregulated power, and then the costs are high. So now we're talking about going back to a regulated Crown Corporation for electricity, and now Notley had no choice but to chastise that and say how it was a bad idea. So I love how these, like, you can play them like a fiddle,
Wow.
You got some politicians where even if you start doing what they ask you to do, they'll still turn against you.
How is that going to work? So I'm not. My knee-jerk reaction is to not be for that.
No, I'm not for it either. And it's just a preliminary sort of. Again, I think it's a threat. I'm gonna. As much as I said, I don't give a lot of benefit of the doubt to politicians and planning and being smart. I'm going to say in this case, Danielle's probably got something up her sleeve, a little idea, and she's going to use this as a ruse or a feint or a distraction or a bargaining chip. So she's doing something. But it's interesting to see that how suddenly a politician like Rachel Notley will just again immediately contradict herself.
That's too good, because all she wanted was that state power. Let's put all the means of production into the hands of the state, and then when they do, if it's not on her terms, it's not cool. Let's not do that at all.
Yeah.
I can see.
No, that's
I don't know if we missed anything that happened this week in Canada. I mean, so many things are happening, but it's just, it's hard to keep track of.
I mean, it's we're you and I talk about Canada, which is great, but again, some of these distractions when there is some of this gong show. The skeptic in me is like, what are they hiding, right? What is actually going on? Is there something else that we're missing? So I'm always thinking, oh, there was one more thing that went on this week. Maybe we'll end with this one. It's a big one, but the National Citizens Inquiry released their report. So I don't know how. Yeah, so just COVID was from 2019 to 2022, and then after that, all the governments tried to say, okay, it's done, let's move on. But some citizens groups said, no, we need to do a post-incident review. So there was something called the National Citizens Inquiry, which is basically a citizen-funded inquiry into COVID. And they traveled across the country over the last year, and they invited, over 300 witnesses who were sworn. Some witnesses just gave their stories. Some witnesses gave insider information, whatever. It was an inquiry into how the government handled the COVID pandemics, governments. And the report came out today. It's 5,643 pages long. I'm only on page 3, but already on page 3, it's damning. It's damning. So maybe we'll have to talk about that on one of the upcoming shows. But that's those are the kinds of big news that are buried today. And that's what made me think of it. There's a gong show going on in the country, but there are still serious things that are being buried, and that's an example of one. I'd like to see a real. I think the way COVID was handled was criminal in some instances, not just negligent. It was criminal, but I don't think we'll ever see anybody held accountable for some of those bad decisions.
No, it's looking that way. They don't even want to talk about it anymore. They just sweep it under the rug, make it go away, and move on to the next criminal enterprise that they're currently doing. I mean, with this whole COVID's done. Move on to the climate agenda. Just like like we heard them talking about from like places like Project Veritas that said that interviewed people from CNN behind the scenes. Oh yeah, COVID's done. That's a nothing burger. We're gonna beat the next dead horse. As long as we possibly can, get everybody else.
Yeah, the next dead horse right now is that they're still beating is everybody in the House of Commons on the Liberal side had a Ukraine ribbon on their lapel, and so they're going to try and beat that dead horse a couple more weeks. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think largely people are.
To your viewers, man, go find that petition. I don't know if you can put a link to the petition, but if anybody's interested, that petition. Basically, the core of that petition is asking for the House of Commons to have a non-confidence vote. That's what that says. So sign the petition. When you sign these official petitions, it's not done until you get the email back from them, and then you have to click on the link. It kind of confirms that the email is real, but it's in the 120,000 range. Let's get it to 250. Let's put it in front of the House of Commons, and let's try and force a non-confidence vote and get this minority government dissolved and go to the votes.
Yeah, because if it wins, it's within 45 days of the vote. Then we go to an election, and hopefully
that'd be sweet.
Get rid of that guy in office. We all been hoping for that. Marty, where can people find you online?
Marty Up North on YouTube and Marty Up North on Twitter. Just uploaded a nice little video on YouTube, not too long, 25 minutes of my I did a 10-day hike in August. Took me a long time to get around to doing that video, but pretty happy the way it turned out.
Nice. Well, I'll make sure the links are all in the description down below, and let's do this again next week.
Cheers, folks.